That do enough for the boy, you know.
My grandmother always said that the land where they built our Walmart used to be a slave cemetery. Back before the developers came with their bulldozers and their lawyers, scraping away 200 years of history like it was nothing more than topsoil. She said the dead don't like being disturbed, especially not by a building that never sleeps, where the cash registers beep like electronic funeral bells, and the shopping carts roll by themselves down empty aisles when the store is closed. I used to think she was just telling stories to scare me, but that was before I started working here, before I learned that some customers pay with coins that are too old and too cold, and their receipts crumble to dust before they reach the parking lot. My name is Beau Thibodeau, and I've been stuck in Ville Platte, Louisiana for the better part of my 23 years. This town sits in the heart of Evangeline Parish, like a forgotten prayer, where the cypress trees grow thick around the bayous, and Spanish moss hangs from the branches like old funeral shrouds. Most folks here speak more French than English, and my grandma spoke both with equal parts wisdom and warning. I never planned on staying. Had dreams of heading up to Baton Rouge for college, maybe studying engineering like my cousin Remy, who made it out 5 years back. But dreams cost money, and money was something our family never had much of. When Daddy got sick with the lung cancer from working the sugarcane fields, and Mama started taking double shifts at the hospital in Opelousas just to keep up with the medical bills, I knew my scholarship applications weren't going anywhere. That's how I ended up wearing the blue vest at the Walmart on Highway 167, the one they built right where Grand-Mère said the old cemetery used to be. The store manager, a thick-set woman named Mrs. Boudreau, who claimed to be distant kin but treated me like hired help, gave me the overnight shift stocking shelves. "You're young," she said during my interview, her coffee-stained teeth showing when she smiled. "Young people can handle working nights better than us old folks." What she didn't tell me was why they had such trouble keeping people on the overnight crew. What she didn't mention was the special training manual I'd receive on my first day, handwritten in faded ink on yellow paper, titled Additional Protocols for Third Shift Associates. What she certainly didn't explain was why she blessed herself with the sign of the cross every time she mentioned the night shift, or why the day workers would go quiet whenever someone brought up what happened after 11 p.m. I found out soon enough that some jobs come with more than just a paycheck and health benefits. Some jobs come with rules that don't make sense until you need them. Rules written by people who learned the hard way what happens when you don't follow them exactly as written. My first night started like any other job. Punch in at 11 p.m., grab a box cutter and a pallet jack, and get ready for 8 hours of moving merchandise around empty aisles. The day shift workers filed out through the front doors like they were escaping something, most of them avoiding eye contact with me and the other two night workers. There was Tante Celeste, a weathered woman in her 60s who'd been working nights here since the store opened 3 years ago. She had the kind of face that looked like it had seen things most people wouldn't believe. Deep lines around dark eyes that seemed to take in everything. The other was Jerome Landry, a kid about my age from down in Mamou who talked too fast and laughed too loud, like he was trying to fill up all the quiet spaces before something else could. "First night?" Tante Celeste asked, studying me while she tied her graying hair back with a bandana. "Mrs. Boudreau give you the special papers yet?" I pulled out the folder I'd been handed during my shift change. The regular employee handbook was there, along with that strange additional manual written on paper that felt brittle between my fingers. The title page read, "Additional Protocols for Third Shift Associates," in handwriting that looked like it belonged in a different century. "Read them before you do anything else," Jerome said, his usual grin fading. "And I mean read every single word, Cher. Don't skip nothing." I opened to the first page and found a list of 8 rules, each one written in the same careful script. Rule 1. Never work alone in aisle 13 between midnight and 3 a.m. If merchandise needs stocking there during these hours, work in pairs and keep conversation going at all times. Rule 2. If you hear shopping carts moving in the store after midnight, do not investigate. Continue your assigned tasks and ignore the sound completely. Rule 3. The customer service phone will ring exactly 3 times between 2:17 and 2:19 a.m. Do not answer it. Let it ring until it stops. Rule 4. If the automatic doors open and close repeatedly without anyone approaching, place a wet floor sign in front of them and avoid that entrance for the remainder of your shift. This some kind of hazing thing? I asked, looking up from the papers. Y'all trying to mess with the new guy? Tante Celeste shook her head slowly. Bo, honey, you seem like a good kid. Smart family. I knew your grandmare before she passed. She was a wise woman who understood things most folks don't. These rules ain't no joke. Jerome had stopped laughing entirely. Last guy who didn't follow them was Trent Begnot from over by Church Point. He lasted exactly 1 week. What happened to him? Nothing happened, Tante Celeste said quietly. That's the problem. One Tuesday morning, his car was still in the parking lot, keys in the ignition, wallet on the passenger seat. But Trent? Gone. Store cameras showed him walking into aisle 13 alone right around 1 a.m., and that was it. Never saw him come out. She handed me a small cloth bag that smelled like sage and something else I couldn't identify. Your girl Mayor made these for all the night workers. Keep it in your vest pocket. The bag was warm against my palm, filled with what felt like dried herbs and maybe some small bones or stones. Grand-mère had always been one for the old ways, what some folks called traiteur, the traditional healing and protection practices that came down through Creole families. I'd grown up seeing her burn candles for people's troubles and mix up remedies that doctors couldn't explain, but somehow worked. The thing is, Jerome said, pulling a similar bag from his own pocket, the rules work. Follow them exactly like they're written, and you'll have a boring, normal night stocking shelves and mopping floors. But the second you think you're smarter than whoever wrote these down, he trailed off, looking toward the back of the store where aisle 13 disappeared into shadows that seemed deeper than they should be. Who did write them? I asked. Tante Celeste checked her watch. An old Timex with a leather band that looked like it had been repaired more than once. Story goes it was the first night manager, back when the store opened. A man named Alcide Broussard who grew up hearing the old stories about this land. He lasted 6 months before he just up and quit one morning, but not before he left those instructions for whoever came after. The store felt different now that I knew about the rules, like the bright retail lighting couldn't quite reach all the corners, and the familiar sounds of a big box store had gained new meaning. Somewhere in the distance, I heard what might have been wheels turning against linoleum, but when I looked down the main aisle, nothing was there. Come on, Jerome said, grabbing a clipboard from the customer service counter. Let's get you started on groceries. And remember, whatever you hear tonight, just keep working. The first hour passed without incident. I worked the cereal aisle while Jerome handled pharmacy, and Tante Celeste took care of the electronics section. The store felt normal enough. Bright overhead lighting, the constant hum of refrigeration units, and the occasional buzz of walkie-talkies from the stockroom. I almost started to relax, thinking maybe the rules were just some elaborate prank after all. Then 12:15 a.m. rolled around, and I heard the wheels. It started as a faint squeak, squeak, squeak from somewhere near the front of the store. I paused, a box of Cheerios halfway to the shelf, and listened. The sound was rhythmic, like someone pushing a shopping cart at a steady pace. But we were the only 3 people in the building, and I could see Jerome's flashlight moving around the pharmacy section 2 aisles over. Rule 2, I whispered to myself, remembering the paper in my pocket. If you hear shopping carts moving in the store after midnight, do not investigate. The squeaking grew closer, accompanied now by what sounded like items rattling around in a metal basket. I forced myself to keep stocking cereal, even as every instinct told me to look around the corner and see what was making the noise. The sounds passed by the end of my aisle, and I caught a glimpse of movement in my peripheral vision. Something dark pushing a cart filled with what looked like old bottles and jars. I kept my eyes on the cereal boxes and continued working until the sounds faded toward the back of the store. Good job, Tante Celeste said quietly, appearing beside me with her own box of merchandise. First test passed. What was that thing? She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again, shaking her head. Some questions are better left alone, Cher. Trust me on that. Around 1 a.m., Jerome called us over to the customer service counter, where he had the protocol manual spread open, pointing to the remaining rules I hadn't read yet. Rule 5. If you see a customer in the store after closing, do not approach them directly. Call out, "Stores closed," from a distance.
Yo, chat, big up intense chat. Everybody spam.
Finish your immediate task and move to a different section. Rule 6. The freezer section temperature gauge will sometimes reach minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, even when the units are functioning normally. When this happens, avoid the frozen until it returns to normal readings.
On the stream, big up intense, no joke. Dog, chat some facts. Dog,
hear voices
is it?
calling your name from
Dog,
the
all the
stockroom.
energy. No joke.
These are not your co-workers.
Alkaline.
Do not
Alright, I try our best. Chat, we are work towards it. We can't. Success can't fall so easy. You have to work.
The store's overhead music stops playing between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m.
It was a mad vibes.
Gather together immediately and wait in the break room until it resumes.
Is it?
Do not continue working alone during this time.
Positive. Always.
8 rules total, Jerome said,
Yeah.
tapping the paper.
Chat. Yo, one son, go on the stream.
Stuff. Other nights, he shrugged. Well, let's just say it keeps things interesting. I was about to ask more questions when we heard the automatic doors at the main entrance cycling open and shut. The whoosh thump pattern repeated every few seconds, like someone was standing just outside the sensor range, triggering it repeatedly. Rule 4, Tante Celeste said, already walking toward the janitor's closet. She returned with a yellow wet floor sign and placed it directly in front of the malfunctioning entrance. Almost immediately, the doors stopped their cycle and remained closed. How does a sign fix automatic doors? I asked. It's not about the sign, Jerome explained. It's about showing respect. This place, it has rules of its own, and our rules are just ways to work around them without causing trouble. The night continued with a strange sort of normalcy. I learned to tune out the occasional cartwheels, to ignore the whispers that seemed to come from empty aisles, and to keep working, even when the temperature in certain sections dropped suddenly for no apparent reason. The cloth bag Grand-mère had made stayed warm in my vest pocket, and I found myself touching it whenever things felt particularly unsettling. Around 2:15 a.m., I was restocking soup cans when the customer service phone began to ring. 3 sharp electronic chirps that echoed through the quiet store. I looked at my watch. 2:17 a.m. exactly. Ring, ring, ring. Then silence. Right on time. Jerome called from across the store, his voice carrying an odd mix of relief and nervousness. Like clockwork, every single night.
Hey, chat, we have some mad thing.
Who's calling? I asked.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Nobody you want to talk to. Tante Celeste answered from someone near the pharmacy.
My artist
Trust me on that one too.
Stick it in there. I mean,
the strangest part wasn't the supernatural occurrences themselves. It was how quickly they started to feel almost routine. Cartwheels squeaking in empty aisles. Keep stocking. Doors cycling for no reason. Place the sign. phone ringing at exactly 2:17. Let it ring and keep working. But around 2:45 a.m., something happened that wasn't covered by any rule. I was working near the back of the store, restocking paper towels.
Hello!
An elderly woman in a faded house dress, pushing a shopping cart filled with what looked like old mason jars and bundles of dried plants. She moved slowly down the main aisle, her bare feet making no sound on the polished linoleum. Following Rule 5, I called out, "Store's closed." She stopped and turned toward me. Her face was kind but weathered, with deep lines around dark eyes that seemed familiar. She smiled and raised one hand in a small wave, then continued on her way toward the grocery section. I watched her disappear around the corner into aisle 13, the one we were supposed to avoid after midnight. Part of me wanted to follow, to call out again, to make sure she was okay. But the warm weight of the cloth bag in my pocket reminded me of Grand-Mère's wisdom, and I stayed put. 5 minutes later, Tante Celeste appeared beside me, breathing hard like she'd been hurrying. "You saw her too?" she asked. I nodded. Old woman in a house dress. She went into aisle 13. Tante Celeste's expression softened. "That was Miss Euphemie. She shops here sometimes, usually when the store gets busy with other things. She's harmless enough. But seeing her means we need to be extra careful tonight." "Who is she?" "Someone who understands this place better than the rest of us. Your Grand-Mère knew her back in the day. They used to trade recipes and remedies." She paused, studying my face. "She waved at you, didn't she?" "Yeah. Why?" "Because she recognized something in you, Cher. Something that makes you safer here than most folks." Tante Celeste patted my shoulder. "But that also means you need to be more careful than most folks. The things that live in this place, they notice people like you." The clock above the pharmacy counter read 3:47 a.m. when I heard my name being called from the stockroom. "Bo? Bo, come help me back here." The voice sounded exactly like Jerome, but I could see Jerome's flashlight moving around the automotive section clear across the store. Rule 7 was specific about this. Between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., voices from the stockroom weren't real, no matter how convincing they sounded. "Bo, where are you, man? I need help moving these pallets."
"Oh, not dude! Big CGF, hey! Lead car with the subs!"
While the voice continued calling from the back of the store.
"Lead car with the sub! No joke! Big CGF! We're fine here! Yeah!
Smart boy. Tante Celeste.
Wait, no apology!
First time I heard that voice, it was calling my daughter's name. Sounded exactly like my mama. Rest her soul. Took everything I had not to go running. The calling stopped abruptly at exactly 4 a.m., like someone had flipped a switch.
Shut!
Wandered over a few minutes later, looking tired but alert.
Like
"Y'all hear anything?" he asked. "Just the usual," I said, and he nodded like that made perfect sense. Around 4:30, we took a break in the small employee room behind customer service. The space was cramped. A round table, a few plastic chairs, and a coffee maker that
Shut! Yo, listen, purple up, no boy. Hey, listen. Hey.
Using chicken coffee and
chat, we don't know overact, dog. I swear, we don't know overact. I swear. Double it, shot, double it. Oh, yo. I don't know what to say. What to say to them? After Christmas and Merry New Year's, I don't know what to say there. Big up everybody on the purple app straight. My son fire. Wait, I'm gonna fix that ASAP.
And ward off bad spirits using the
I'm gonna fix that real quick.
Miss Euphemie, she was something similar, but older. Much older. How old are we talking? Old enough to remember when this land was still a cemetery. Old enough to have known some of the folks buried here before they passed on. She took a slow sip of coffee. When the developers came through with their permits and their machinery, most of the bodies got moved to the new cemetery over by Basile. But you can't move all the spirits, especially not the ones who don't want to go. Jerome leaned forward, his usual joking manner replaced by something more serious. My grandpère used to work construction. He was on the crew that cleared this land. Said they found things that weren't supposed to be there. Personal items buried deep, stones arranged in patterns that made the workers nervous. The foreman told them to just push everything aside and pour the foundation. But Grandpère said some of the crew quit rather than disturb what they'd found. What kind of things? Old bottles filled with herbs and roots, pieces of bone carved with symbols, cloth dolls sewn shut with red thread. Tante Celeste's voice dropped to barely above a whisper.
When I hear me?
Your grand-mère told me once that those were protection charms, placed there by people who knew this ground would need watching over, even after death.
Thief, pick up yourself.
I thought about the warm bag in my vest pocket, filled with herbs and small bones. Is that why Grand-mère made these for the night workers? Partly. But also because she recognized that you and your family have a connection to this place that goes back further than most folks realize. Tante Celeste studied my face in the dim break room light. Your ancestor, Celeste Thibodeau, was buried in the original cemetery. She was a healer too, known for helping enslaved people and free people of color when they had troubles that regular doctors couldn't fix. The name hit me like a physical blow. I'd heard stories about Celeste Thibodeau my whole life, the woman I was named after, though family stories had never been clear about exactly when she lived or what happened to her. She's buried here, under the store, near the frozen food section, best we can figure from the old cemetery records. And Miss Euphemie, well, Miss Euphemie claims to remember her from when they were both young women. Tante Celeste paused, letting that sink in. That would make Miss Euphemie well over 150 years old. We sat in silence for a few minutes, listening to the distant hum of the store's machinery and the occasional creak of the building settling. The coffee tasted like home, like Sunday mornings at Grand-mère's house, and for a moment I felt a deep sadness for all the stories that died with her. There's something else, Jerome said quietly. Something Mrs. Boudreau didn't tell you about the training manual. He pulled out a different piece of paper from his back pocket. This one newer, but written in the same careful handwriting. These are the emergency protocols. The things you do when the regular rules aren't enough. I read over the additional instructions. Emergency Protocol A. If you encounter a customer who responds to stores closed but refuses to leave, offer them a shopping basket and escort them to aisle 13. Do not engage in conversation beyond basic politeness. Emergency Protocol. If the temperature gauge in frozen foods drops below negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit, evacuate the building immediately through the garden center exit. Wait in the parking lot until it returns to normal. Emergency Protocol C. If you hear children laughing in the store after 2 a.m., gather all night workers immediately and recite the Lord's Prayer together until the laughter stops. Emergency Protocol. If Miss Euphemie approaches you directly and speaks your name, listen carefully to what she tells you. Her warnings have saved lives. How often do you need the emergency protocols? I asked. Maybe once a month, Tante Celeste said. Usually during certain times of year, around All Saints' Day, or during the full moon, or sometimes when there's been trouble in the community. The spirits get restless when there's discord among the living. We finished our break and returned to work. The store felt different now that I knew about Celeste Thibodeau, like I was walking through a family graveyard instead of a retail space. Every aisle held the possibility of connection to people who had lived and died on this ground long before the first shovel broke earth for the foundation. Around 5 a.m., as we were finishing up the last of our stocking duties, I found myself working near the frozen food section. The temperature gauge read a normal 0 degrees Fahrenheit, but I could swear the air felt different here. Not just cold, but weighted somehow, like standing in a room where important conversations had taken place. I was arranging bags of frozen vegetables when I felt someone watching me. Not the usual sensation of being observed by unseen presences that I had grown accustomed to throughout the night, but the specific feeling of human eyes focused on my movements. Miss Euphemie stood at the end of the aisle, no longer pushing a shopping cart. She wore the same faded house dress, but now I could see details I'd missed before. The intricate embroidery around the collar, the small silver cross at her throat, the way she held herself with quiet dignity despite her apparent age.
Alright, chat,
Beau
so we are loaded
Thibodeau,
up right now.
she said, and her voice carried the musical accent of old Louisiana French. You have your grandmare's eyes and your ancestors' gift. Emergency Protocol D sent to listen when Miss Euphemie spoke my name directly.
Hey, Chef, you see we have
Ma'am?
67 people over in that purple
The ground
right
beneath
now.
this place remembers kindness, she said, walking closer. Your ancestor Celeste, she helped many people cross over peacefully when their time came. Some of us still remember that kindness. She reached into a pocket of her dress and pulled out a small object, a piece of carved bone tied with red thread. This belongs to you now. Keep it close when the regular protections aren't enough. She placed the charm in my palm. It felt warm, like it had been sitting in sunlight, and I could see tiny symbols carved into its surface, marks that looked familiar, though I couldn't say where I'd seen them before. Thank you, I said, but when I looked up, she was gone. The bone charm joined the herb bag in my vest pocket, and together they created a warmth that spread through my chest, like drinking hot coffee on a cold morning. 2 weeks into the job, I thought I had the night shift figured out. Follow the rules, respect the spirits, and treat the supernatural occurrences like just another part of workplace routine. Cartwheels at midnight. Keep stalking. Phone rings at 2:17. Let it ring. Voices from the stockroom. Ignore them completely. But that Friday night in November proved that understanding the rules and being tested by them were two entirely different things. The trouble started around 1:30 a.m. when I was working the canned goods aisle. A young woman appeared at the far end, pushing an empty shopping cart. She looked maybe 25, with long dark hair and an LSU sweatshirt that seemed too thin for the November chill. Nothing about her screamed supernatural. She looked like any college student making a late-night grocery run. Following Rule 5, I called out, "Store's closed, miss." She stopped and looked at me, tilting her head slightly. "I just need a few things," she said, her voice carrying a slight echo that made the hair on my arms stand up. "It won't take long." Rule 5 was clear.
Okay.
If they responded but didn't leave, I should finish my immediate task and move to a different section. But something about her expression kept me frozen in place. Her eyes held a pleading quality that reminded me of someone asking for help at a church door. "Please," she said, taking a step closer. "I've been driving all night. I just need some food for my baby." That's when I noticed the car seat in her shopping cart, covered with a small blanket. My chest tightened as I remembered Emergency Protocol A. If a customer responded but refused to leave, offer them a shopping basket and escort them to aisle 13. But this felt different. Personal. The woman's desperation seemed genuine, and the protective charms in my vest pocket had grown warm against my ribs. "What's your baby's name?" I asked, stepping slightly closer. Her smile faltered for just a moment. "Marie," she said finally. "Her name is Marie." Something about the way she said it, too careful, like she was reading from a script, made me take a step back. I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to Jerome and Tante Celeste. Customer situation. Aisle 3. Need backup. The woman pushed her cart closer, and I caught a glimpse under the blanket covering the car seat. Instead of a sleeping infant, there was a bundle of old rags wrapped around what looked like dried corn cobs and animal bones. Beautiful baby, I said carefully, backing toward the end of the aisle. Would you like to hold her? The woman asked, reaching for the blanket. No, thank you, ma'am. Let me get you that shopping basket. I walked quickly to the front of the store where the baskets were stacked, the woman following about 10 feet behind. Jerome and Tante Celeste appeared from different directions, converging on customer service. Everything okay, Cher? Tante Celeste asked loud enough for the woman to hear. Just helping this customer find what she needs, I said, handing the woman a small red basket. Right this way, please. The three of us escorted her toward the back of the store, maintaining the polite fiction that this was normal customer service. The woman seemed content with the arrangement, humming quietly to the bundle in her cart as we walked. Aisle 13 stretched before us, longer than it should have been, and filled with shadows that the overhead lighting couldn't quite penetrate. Pet food and paper products lined the shelves, but tonight they seemed arranged differently, creating narrow pathways that led deeper into darkness. Thank you so much, the woman said as she turned her cart into the aisle. This is exactly what I needed. She disappeared into the shadows between the shelves, her humming fading to nothing. We waited at the mouth of the aisle for several minutes, but she never emerged from the other end. First time using Protocol A? Tante Celeste asked. Yeah. Was that really a person? Hard to say, Jerome answered. Could have been someone who died in a car accident, still trying to take care of her baby. Could have been something else wearing the memory of a person. Either way, you handled it right. We returned to our work, but the store felt different now. More watchful, like we'd attracted attention we didn't want. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees, and I noticed that some of the shopping carts near the front entrance had arranged themselves in a perfect circle, their wheels all pointing inward. Around 2:45 a.m., while I was restocking vitamins in the pharmacy section, I heard it. The sound of children laughing somewhere in the store. The laughter was high and sweet, like kids playing in a schoolyard, but it carried an echo that suggested the voices came from very far away or very long ago. I froze, listening as the sounds moved through the building, coming from different directions as if multiple children were running around the aisles playing tag. Emergency Protocol C. Gather all night workers and recite the Lord's Prayer together until the laughter stops. I grabbed my walkie-talkie. Jerome, Tante Celeste, we need Emergency Protocol C. Now. They must have heard the laughter too, because they appeared within 30 seconds, both looking grim. We gathered in the center aisle near customer service, forming a small circle. Our Father, who art in heaven, Tante Celeste began, her voice steady and strong. Jerome and I joined in, our voices blending together as the laughter continued around us, sometimes seeming to come from just over our shoulders, sometimes from deep within the walls themselves. Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. On earth as it is in heaven. The laughter grew louder, more insistent, and I could swear I saw small shapes darting between the aisles in my peripheral vision. The protective charms in my pocket burned against my chest, not painfully, but with an intensity that made me gasp. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Something tugged at the bottom of my vest, like small fingers trying to get my attention. I kept my eyes closed and continued praying, feeling Jerome's shoulder pressed against mine on one side and Tante Celeste's steady presence on the other. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. The laughter began to fade, growing distant and wistful, like children being called home for dinner. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Silence fell over the store like a heavy blanket. We stood there for another minute, listening to make sure the laughter had truly stopped. What were they? I asked finally. Children who died too young, Tante Celeste said softly. Sometimes they get lonely and want to play. The prayer reminds them that there are better places to find playmates. The rest of the night passed quietly. We finished our stocking duties, cleaned the break room, and prepared for the morning shift to arrive. But as I was gathering my things from my locker, I found a small piece of paper tucked into my time card slot. The handwriting was different from the rule manual, shakier, more urgent. The new moon brings old debts. Stay close to the frozen food section next Tuesday. Trust the bone charm when the lights go out. A.B., A.B., I murmured to myself. Alcide Broussard, the first night manager who had written the original rules. I folded the note and put it in my wallet next to my driver's license, wondering how someone who quit 3 years ago had managed to leave me a message in my locker. But after everything I'd experienced over the past few weeks, mysterious notes seemed almost normal. The morning shift workers started arriving as we clocked out, chatting about weekend plans and complaining about traffic on Highway 190. None of them seemed to notice that some of the shopping carts were arranged in strange patterns, or that the temperature gauge in frozen foods was reading minus 15 degrees Fahrenheit, despite the units running normally. As I walked to my truck in the parking lot, I looked back at the building. In the early morning light, it looked like any other Walmart. Mundane, corporate, unremarkable. But I knew better now. Some places carry their history in ways that can't be covered up with fresh paint and bright signage. Tuesday was still 4 days away, but I had a feeling it was going to be a long wait. Tuesday night arrived with an unseasonable warmth that made the November air feel thick and restless. I'd spent the weekend thinking about Alcide Broussard's note, wondering what old debts meant and why the frozen food section would be important. The bone charm Miss Euphemie had given me seemed heavier in my pocket, and I caught myself touching it throughout the day. When I arrived for my shift, Mrs. Boudreau was waiting by the time clock, her usual stern expression replaced by something that looked like worry. "Bo, I need to talk to you before you punch in," she said, leading me to her small office behind customer service. The space smelled like coffee and old paperwork, with family photos crowded onto every available surface. "Is everything okay?" She closed the door and sat down heavily behind her desk. "I got a call today from someone claiming to be Alcide Broussard. Said he needed to speak with you about tonight." My stomach dropped. What did he want? He wouldn't say much over the phone, just that there was going to be trouble, and you needed to be prepared. Said something about a debt coming due on the new moon. She studied my face carefully. "You know anything about this?" I showed her the note I'd found in my locker. She read it twice, her frown deepening. Alcide was a good man, but working nights here changed him. By the end, he was talking about things that didn't make sense to most folks. Old agreements and spiritual obligations that came with the land. She handed the note back to me, but he was never wrong about the dangerous nights. Should I call in sick? No. Her answer was immediate and firm. If Alcide says you need to be here, then you need to be here. Just be extra careful tonight. Follow every rule exactly and trust your instincts. I punched in at 11 p.m. to find only Tante Celeste waiting for me. Jerome's car wasn't in the parking lot, and his usual joking energy was nowhere to be found. Where's Jerome?
What?
Called in with stomach trouble around 6, Tante Celeste said, but something in her tone suggested she didn't believe the excuse.
Text the girl.
Looks like it's just you and me tonight.
My girl.
The store felt different from the moment we started working.
No.
The air seemed to vibrate with tension,
No.
like the atmosphere before a
You
thunderstorm.
hear me?
The shopping carts were already arranged in strange patterns near the entrance, and several of the automatic doors kept cycling despite the bright yellow signs we placed in front of them. Around midnight, the temperature gauge in frozen foods began dropping. I watched it fall from 0 degrees Fahrenheit to negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit, then negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. The numbers changing with each minute that passed.
Yeah.
Tante Celeste, I called over the walkie-talkie. Frozen foods is getting cold fast.
Hello?
How cold?
I was calling.
I checked
called
the
you
gauge
twice
again.
And you didn't answer the phone.
35 degrees Fahrenheit, and still dropping.
Yeah, hear me?
Emergency protocol B is at minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. She
You hear me?
replied, keep watching it, but don't go into that section
Yeah,
alone.
but there, I just buy a bike and thing and thing.
By
Where they?
12:30,
I'm
the
at
gauge read
location waiting
minus
for you. I've been
45
here for an hour
degrees
and a half.
Fahrenheit.
Oh,
I could
wow.
see my breath when I stood at the mouth of the frozen foods aisles, and frost was beginning to form on the floor, despite the building's heating system running normally everywhere
I'm
else.
sorry.
It's a new
That's when the
beginning, right?
lights went out. Not
Yeah,
just
maybe.
dimmed or
Rust.
flickered, they cut out completely,
Otis.
plunging
are you
the
this?
entire store
Where?
into absolute
Oh, I
darkness.
saw 2 cars pass me.
The
Okay.
emergency lighting should have kicked in
Yeah.
immediately. But even that remained dark.
Like a multicolored car.
The only illumination came from the exit signs,
Urgh!
casting an eerie red glow
Yeah,
that
we
seemed to
can
make
talk.
the shadows deeper
Killer!
rather than lighter. The bone charm in my pocket flared to life with warmth that
Yes,
spread
man.
through my chest and down my arms.
No, because more I see who
Miss
you talking
Euphemie's
to.
words came back to me.
Up, my J.
Trust the bone charm when the lights go out. Tante Celeste?
Down.
I called into the darkness, but got no response on the
I think
walkie-talkie.
I...
The building
Who
was
are you
utterly
talking
silent,
to?
I
except
bike.
for my own breathing
I'm gonna
and
register
the
I
distant
bike.
hum of refrigeration
no,
units
you're not.
that
No,
somehow
you're not. I just
continued
saw
running
you. Why
despite
you
the
not
power
pulling up
outage.
on me? I don't understand.
I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight.
Hang up, you
No,
bum.
A
I'm
narrow
not
beam
Hang up, you
cut
bum.
through the
Come on,
darkness,
five.
revealing empty aisles that seemed to stretch further than they should. I started walking toward the frozen food section, guided by the increasing warmth from the bone charm. As I got closer, I could hear voices, not the usual whispers or calls from the stockroom, but actual conversation. Multiple people talking quietly, their words
Go on, my
indistinct,
girl.
but their tones
Go on.
urgent. The temperature gauge now read minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit, well below emergency protocol B levels. But something told me that evacuating wasn't the right answer. The bone charm was practically burning against my ribs now, pulling me forward like a compass needle pointing toward magnetic north. I rounded the corner into the frozen food section and stopped. At least 20 people stood in the aisles, their forms barely visible in the red glow from the exit signs. They wore clothing from different time periods, some in simple work clothes that looked decades old, others in the kind of formal dress people wore to church on Sundays.
Tell him
All of them looking at me with expressions of hope and desperation. Standing at the center of the group was Miss Euphemie, no longer wearing her faded house dress but dressed in what looked like her Sunday best. A dark blue dress with lace at the collar and small pearl buttons running down the front. Beau Thibodeau, she said, and her voice carried clearly through the frozen air. We've been waiting for you. Who are all these people? The ones who were buried here before the developers came. The ones who never got properly moved to the new cemetery. She gestured to the group around her. We've been trying to rest, but there's a debt that keeps us tied to this ground. An elderly man stepped forward, his overalls patched but clean. Your ancestor Celeste helped many of us cross over peacefully
Atlanta?
when our time
How
came.
was the flight, baby?
But there's one soul here who wasn't ready to go,
Regular
who's
flight.
been causing trouble for
First
everyone
class, but
else.
you don't know.
That's when I saw her, the young woman from 2 weeks ago, standing at the back of the
You
group.
ready?
But now I could see her clearly, see the terrible
Airbnb
sadness in
that I
her
tried to
eyes,
book.
Yeah.
and the way she clutched the bundle of rags to her chest. She lost her baby during
That's
childbirth,
what you mean. We can't-
Miss Euphemie
so,
explained.
where we gonna live?
died herself 3 days
Where we gonna
later
stay?
from fever and grief.
Not sure. But
Been
like I said,
wandering
they
this
canceled
ground for
last
over a
minute,
century,
so I just
looking for her
came here. I
child,
saw Tommy.
disturbing the
Been
rest
trying
of
to
everyone
figure out
else
where we
buried
can go.
here.
He was saying we can rent an apartment.
What does this have to do with me?
Hold on there. Let me see.
Your ancestor made a
Cassie,
promise.
Cassie, man, I look for me
The
because
woman in overall said.
the youth, them, I don't know why they
Told
look
this
for
poor
me.
girl that when the time was right,
Uh,
someone from her
yeah, man,
family
yes,
would
me
help
have
the
mo-
baby
no.
find its way to
When
the
I hear
other
some me have
side
money,
so
boy,
they
yeah.
could be reunited.
All of a sudden, as me
The
reach,
young woman took a step toward me,
as me
her
reach,
eyes
me need
filled
to
with
reach
desperate
good.
hope. Please, she whispered.
Me tell the man something
So,
about I
like,
want to
you
Want
buy.
to hold my baby again.
You
I
told
just
him you
want
don't
us to be
want the
together.
bike, and then he tried to come kill you for
The bone
bike?
charm was so warm now,
No.
it felt like holding a coal from a fire. I reached into my vest
Really bad
pocket and
one.
pulled it out. In the red emergency lighting,
Yeah,
I
for
could
me,
see
she
that the
can't pay for
carved
anything.
symbols
You don't
were
have
glowing
to-
faintly, pulsing like a slow heartbeat.
Literally.
What do I need to do? Miss Euphemie smiled. Take the bundle from her, hold it like it's precious, and speak the words that will send both mother and child to their rest.
Say word.
I
Call in
walked
name.
slowly toward the young woman.
Alright, so
Up
like I was
close,
saying,
I could
Tommy
see
saying
that
we
she
can
was
rent an
barely
apartment.
older
You
than
want
me
to
when
link
she
up with him?
died, her face still holding
to get
traces
the
of the girl
apartment?
she had been.
And
Yeah.
then
She held out the bundle of rags, and when I took it, it felt surprisingly
make plans?
heavy and warm.
Yeah, you said you was taking me on a
What was
date,
your
so
baby's
we
name?
planned everything.
I
We
asked
can't change the
softly.
carrier, like, we can't like, get the carrier changed
Joseph,
also.
she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. Joseph Michael.
No, like, it color, I mean, it's
I
because
cradled
of
the
me.
bundle against my chest,
I was waiting for you
feeling
to
the
fix
bone
it.
charm's
Yeah.
warmth
I
spread
just
through
got
both
this
of
far.
us. The
just
words
get the
came
car?
to me as if I'd always known them, flowing from some deep memory that
Monkey
didn't
garage,
belong
monkey
to me
garage.
alone.
Change the color, 'cause the color
Joseph
top
Michael,
right.
That's
your
true,
mama's
yeah.
been
Yeah,
waiting
it's
for you.
right.
I know.
She's been so worried looking for you all this time. But you're safe now, and she's safe now,
Hold on.
and it's time for both of you to go home.
What do you mean the money?
The bundle in my arms grew lighter, and I watched as the young woman's face transformed from desperate sadness to peaceful joy. She reached out
Yeah?
toward me, and when her fingers touched the bundle, both she and it began to glow with soft,
No, me I say,
golden
man,
light.
they know the color in terms of
Thank you, she whispered.
color easy if you
Thank
catch,
you
if
so
you don't
much.
realize. If you look upon it
The
good.
light grew
Like,
brighter,
if me see this, me can't
encompassing
answer
both
this, you know
mother
what I mean?
and child,
Okay, got
and
it.
then
Yeah.
they were gone.
Yeah,
The
I
other spirits in the frozen
them.
food section began to
Hide.
fade as well, their faces showing relief
baby?
and gratitude
We had to talk
as they
about hide.
finally found their
No, man,
rest.
I'm just.
You feel, you think
Miss
something like
Euphemie was the
no,
last
you
to
feel like
go.
I'm this big idiot when I hide
She
from boy
walked
for.
over to me and placed her
I
hand
just
on
don't
my
like it,
shoulder,
color, throw me,
her
tell
touch
say color,
warm
throw me
despite
off.
the frigid
You
air.
come and talk about hide from man, you think me afraid of
Your
boy?
ancestor would be
No,
proud,
I was just,
she said.
I don't understand
The
what's
debt is
going on.
paid,
I was
and
so
we can all
excited to
rest
see you.
now.
Then,
Will I see you
I walk
again?
all you.
your
She
sister is
smiled.
calling me.
Not here.
Okay, okay.
This place will be peaceful now.
I
But
will
someday,
park-
when your
I will
own
park
time
in a solid
comes,
place.
we'll be waiting to welcome you home.
Yeah,
The
Sister!
golden light faded, and I was alone in the frozen
We're
food
there, we're
section.
there, we're there, we're there, we're there,
The
we're there,
temperature
sister,
gauge
we're there,
began
we're there.
climbing back toward normal, and a few seconds later, the store's lights flickered back on. My walkie-talkie crackled to life. Bo?
Alright,
Bo,
like
you
that.
there?
Yeah.
What happened to the lights?
Chat, me not lie. Cassie, you hear
Just
me?
a power outage, I said into
Cassie,
the
you hear me?
radio. Everything's back to normal now.
Oh, now you hear me. Chat, me, I tell you the truth.
And it was.
Me a hide, me not
For the
girl.
rest of the night, the
Come
store
on,
felt
yes,
like just
sir?
a store. Bright, mundane,
Upper
ordinary.
tab, upper tab, upper tab.
No cartwheels squeaking in empty aisles.
What
No
not that
mysterious phone calls. No whispers from the stockroom. The rules were still there, written in faded ink on yellowed
up?
paper. But somehow I knew we wouldn't need them much anymore. The next 3 weeks passed in what felt like a completely different job. The Walmart
fine,
on
right?
Highway
Like,
167
you just told
had
me I'm
transformed from a battleground of supernatural encounters into just another retail store that happened to stay open all night. The rules were still posted in our break room, but we rarely needed them.
Okay, you sent me the location.
Jerome
so
returned to
they'll
work
fix
the
it, right?
following Thursday, looking sheepish and avoiding eye contact when I asked about his sudden stomach trouble. Heard there was some kind of situation Tuesday night, he said, while we stocked paper goods together. You could say that.
All right, put the quick.
And everything's different now? I nodded. Peaceful.
You're going the wrong way, babe.
The changes were obvious to anyone who worked nights. The shopping carts stayed where we left them. The automatic doors functioned normally. The customer service phone never rang at 2:17 a.m. And the temperature gauges read exactly what they were supposed to read. Most remarkably, we could work anywhere in the store at any time without fear, including aisle 13, which had become just another section filled with pet food and cleaning supplies. Tante Celeste seemed both relieved and slightly sad about the transformation. 40 years I've been sensing spirits around this parish, she told me during our break one night. First time in my life this place feels completely quiet. It's nice, but also lonely, you know. Mrs. Boudreau noticed the change too. She started scheduling only 2 people for the night shift instead of 3, and stopped blessing herself when she mentioned after-hours work. The constant worry lines around her eyes softened, and she even smiled when discussing overnight operations. But the most significant change was in me. The bone charm this Euphemie had given me no longer burned with protective warmth. It simply rested cool and smooth in my pocket, like any other carved piece of bone. The herb bag from Grand-Mère felt different too, more like a keepsake than an active ward against supernatural threats. 3 weeks after the night in frozen foods, I was restocking vitamins when a familiar figure appeared at the end of the pharmacy aisle. Alcide Broussard looked exactly like I'd imagined from the stories. A lean man in his 50s with graying hair and the kind of steady gaze that came from seeing unusual things and learning to accept them. He wore clean work clothes and carried a small notebook, the kind used for inventory counts. "You must be Beau," he said, walking over with his hand extended. "I'm Alcide. I believe you got my note." His handshake was firm and warm, completely solid and human. No ghostly chill or otherworldly presence. Just a middle-aged man who looked tired, but satisfied. "I thought you quit this job 3 years ago." I did. But some responsibilities don't end when you turn in your name tag. He pulled out his notebook and showed me pages covered with the same careful handwriting I recognized from the rules. I've been keeping track of the spiritual activity here since the store opened, documenting patterns and developing protocols to keep people safe. "Why didn't you come back sooner?" "Because I'm not family. The debt I told you about, that was something only a descendant of Celeste Thibodeau could resolve. I could manage the symptoms, create rules to work around the problem, but I couldn't cure the underlying cause." He glanced around the quiet store. "You did what needed to be done." We walked together toward the break room, passing aisles that felt normal and unthreatening in a way they never had before. Alcide moved with the confidence of someone who knew every corner of the building, checking details that I'd never thought to notice. The way shadows fell under the shelving, the positioning of security cameras, the flow of air through the ventilation system. "The rules you wrote saved lives," I told him. "They were band-aids on a wound that needed proper healing. What you did Tuesday night, that was the real medicine." He paused at the entrance to aisle 13, looking down the length of shelving that had once been forbidden territory during certain hours. Mind if I ask what it felt like? Helping them cross over? I thought about the weight of the bundle in my arms, the young mother's face transforming from desperate sadness to peaceful joy, the way the golden light had filled the frozen food section. "Like coming home," I said finally. "Not for me, But for them, like they'd been lost for so long and finally found their way back to where they belonged. That's the gift your ancestor had. The ability to ease the transition between life and death, to help spirits find their proper rest. Not everyone can do that kind of work.
Alright, free up myself.
He made a note in his book.
Fully my dog.
The question now is whether you want to keep doing it. What do you mean? This store isn't the only place in Louisiana with restless spirits. There are old plantations, abandoned hospitals, stretches of highway where people died in accidents, all kinds of locations where the dead haven't found peace yet. He closed his notebook. People like your ancestor, like you, were needed in those places. I thought about Grand-Mère and all the stories she'd told about helping people with troubles that regular doctors couldn't fix. About Celeste Thibodeau and her reputation for easing suffering in ways that went beyond physical healing. About the warmth I'd felt from the bone charm when it guided me toward people who needed help. How would that work? I still need this job to help support my family. There are ways to arrange things. Mrs. Boudreau has been looking for a night manager since I left. Someone reliable who understands the unique aspects of this location. The position pays better and gives you flexibility to handle other consultations when they come up. The idea of staying in Ville Platte hadn't appealed to me 6 months ago. College in Baton Rouge had seemed like the only path to a better life. But now, thinking about the young mother's grateful face and the peace that had settled over the store after she found her rest, I wondered if there might be other kinds of meaningful work. Let me think about it, I said. Of course, but don't take too long. There's already been a call about some unusual activity at the old Opelousas General Hospital. They're converting it to apartments, and the construction crew is reporting strange sounds and cold spots. He handed me a business card with just a phone number printed on it.
Tommy introduced you to
When you're ready to learn more about what you can do, give me a call.
Tommy.
The rest of my shift passed quietly. Jerome and I finished the grocery sections, cleaned the break room, and prepared for the morning workers to arrive. As we were clocking out, Jerome pulled me aside.
You see this lady right here?
Things really are different now, aren't they?
Be careful of that.
Yeah, they are. I'll miss it, in a weird way. The excitement, the adrenaline of never knowing what might happen. He grinned, but there was something thoughtful behind his usual humor. Think you'll stay here long term? I'm not sure yet. Well, if you do decide to move on, put in a good word for me with whatever comes after. I've gotten used to working someplace interesting. As I drove home through the pre-dawn darkness, I thought about Alcide's offer and the business card in my wallet. The old hospital in Opelousas was only 30 miles away. Close enough to drive there after my regular shift, help whoever needed helping, and be back home before my family woke up. Grand-Mère had always said that some people were called to serve others, that the gift of easing suffering came with the responsibility to use it. I'd thought that meant becoming a doctor or a social worker or something equally conventional. But maybe there were other ways to heal wounds that reigned deeper than medicine could reach. The bone charm in my pocket remained cool and quiet, but I could swear I felt a gentle warmth from the herb bag Grand-Mère had made. Not the urgent heat of active protection, but something softer, approval, maybe, or encouragement. I pulled into my driveway as the eastern sky began to lighten with the first hints of sunrise. The house was quiet, my parents still sleeping before they had to get up and face another day of medical bills and financial worries. I sat in my truck for a few minutes, looking at the familiar side of home and thinking about the paths that had led me here. 6 months ago, I'd seen the night shift at Walmart as a temporary necessity, a way to earn money while I figured out my real future. Now I wondered if I'd been looking at it backward, Maybe this wasn't a detour from my life's purpose. Maybe it was the beginning of it. The business card felt warm between my fingers as I finally got out of the truck and headed inside. 2 days later, I called the number on Alcide's card. "I was wondering when I'd hear from you," he said after I identified myself. "Ready to see what this work really looks like?" "I think so. Tell me about the hospital." Opelousas General closed 15 years ago when they built the new medical center on the other side of town. The building's been empty since then, but last month, a development company bought it to convert into senior apartments. The construction crew started renovating the third floor, the old maternity ward, and that's when the problems began. I drove to Opelousas after my shift Friday morning, following Alcide's directions to a massive brick building that had clearly seen better days. The parking lot was cracked and overgrown with weeds, and several of the windows on the upper floors were boarded over with plywood. A chain-link fence surrounded the construction zone, but Alcide was waiting by an open gate with a man in a hard hat who looked exhausted. "This is Tony Hebert, the site foreman," Alcide said, making introductions. "Tony, this is Beau Thibodeau, the young man I told you about." Tony shook my hand with the grip of someone who worked with his hands for a living. "I've been in construction for 25 years, he said, "and I've never seen anything like what's happening on that third floor. My crew is ready to quit, and I don't blame them." We walked through the main entrance into a lobby that still smelled like disinfectant and floor wax, despite 15 years of abandonment. The renovation work on the first 2 floors looked professional. New drywall, updated electrical, fresh paint. But as we climbed the stairwell toward the third floor, the temperature began to drop. "It started 3 weeks ago," Tony explained, as we reached the landing. We were pulling up old linoleum in what used to be the nursery when we found something underneath the flooring. He led us down a hallway lined with rooms that would have held patients' beds. The construction crew had done substantial work here. Walls had been removed to create larger apartment units. New plumbing had been installed, and modern fixtures were being added throughout. But the renovation felt incomplete, like the workers had stopped mid-project. "Here," Tony said, stopping at a room near the end of the hall. "This is where we found them." The space was larger than the others, clearly meant to become a master bedroom in one of the apartment units. But the flooring work had been abandoned, leaving squares of subflooring exposed. In the center of the room, someone had outlined a section with yellow construction tape. "Baby shoes," Tony said quietly. "Dozens of pairs, all different sizes and ages. Some looked brand new. Others were worn like they'd been walked in. All of them arranged in perfect circles, like someone had placed them there with care." I knelt down next to the outlined area and immediately felt the bone charm in my pocket grow warm. The herb bag followed suit, both protective items responding to something I couldn't yet see, but could definitely sense. "What happened after you found them?" "That's when the crying started," Tony said, rubbing his arms like he was trying to get warm. "Babies crying, but not distressed crying. More like they were calling for someone. It happens every day between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m., which was shift change time when the hospital was operating." "Any other incidents?" "Oh, plenty. Tools go missing and turn up in the rooms that used to be the nursery. The elevator runs by itself, stopping on the third floor, even though we disconnected the call buttons. And yesterday..." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "Yesterday, 3 of my guys swore they saw a woman in a nurse's uniform walking through the halls, checking on empty rooms like she was making rounds." Alcide pulled out his notebook and made several entries while Tony talked. The construction work disturbed something that's been resting peacefully for 15 years. When you started renovating the maternity ward, You woke up memories that were better left alone. Can you fix it? Alcide looked at me. That's not really my department anymore. Bo? I stood up, feeling the weight of responsibility settle around my shoulders like Grand-Mère's old quilts, heavy but comforting. The bone charm was warm enough now that I could feel it through my vest pocket, and I knew that whatever was happening here, it was something I was meant to help with. Tell me about the hospital's history, I said, specifically the maternity ward. Tommy consulted a clipboard full of notes. According to the records we got from the hospital administration, this floor delivered over 3,000 babies between 1972 and 2008. Standard statistics for infant mortality, nothing unusual there. But there was one incident. He flipped through several pages. 1987. Hurricane that flooded the basement and knocked out power for 18 hours. Emergency generators failed, and they had to evacuate the entire building. Most patients were moved to other facilities, but there were complications with some of the babies in the nursery. What kind of complications? Power outage meant the incubator stopped working. Several premature infants didn't survive the evacuation. His voice dropped. 7 babies total, all born too early, all dependent on equipment that stopped working when the lights went out. The pieces fell into place in my mind, like puzzle parts, finding their proper spots. 7 babies who died during a crisis, probably scared and calling for comfort that never came. A nursery where their tiny bodies had rested before being moved to final burial. And now, decades later, construction work that had disturbed the one place where their presence still lingered. They're not trying to cause trouble, I said, understanding flooding through me. They're just confused. The construction work changed everything they remember about this place, and they're trying to understand what happened to the nursery they knew. Can you help them? Tony asked. I thought about the young mother in the Walmart frozen food section, about the way she'd found peace when someone finally acknowledged her loss and helped her move on. These babies would need something similar, recognition, comfort, and guidance toward whatever came after. I'll need to come back tonight after the construction crew goes home, and I'll need some things. Baby blankets, maybe some soft toys, something to create a peaceful space for them. Tony nodded eagerly. Whatever you need. I've got a pregnant daughter at home, and the thought of those babies being scared and alone. He cleared his throat. Just tell me what to bring. He spent another hour walking through the 3rd floor, identifying the rooms where the spiritual activity seemed strongest. The old nursery, the room where the baby shoes had been found, and a corner space that had served as a family consultation area where parents would have received difficult news about their children's conditions. As we prepared to leave, Alcide pulled me aside. You sure you're ready for this? It's different when it's children involved. The emotions run deeper, and the responsibility feels heavier. I thought about Grand-Mère and all the times I'd watched her help people through their worst moments. Not by fixing their problems, but by sitting with them in their pain and offering comfort that went beyond words. About Celeste Thibago and her reputation for easing the transition between life and death. I'm ready, I said. This is what I'm supposed to do. That evening, I returned to the hospital with a bag full of supplies. Soft blankets, gentle music on a portable speaker, 7 small teddy bears that Tony had purchased from the pharmacy down the street. The construction site was empty, except for the security guard, who let us in through a side entrance and promised to stay on the 1st floor. The 3rd floor felt different at night, not threatening, but expectant, like a room full of people waiting for something important to begin. I set up the blankets in the old nursery, arranged the teddy bears in a semicircle, and started the music, gentle lullabies that my own mother had sung to me when I was small. Then I sat down in the center of the circle and waited. The call came at 2:30 in the morning while I was restocking the pharmacy section at my old workplace. The Walmart night shift had become routine again, but now I carried it alongside my real work, the kind grand-mère would have understood. Bo, this is Father Boudreau from St. Landry Catholic Church over in Opelousas. The priest's voice carried the weight of sleepless nights. I got your number from Tony Hebert. He said you helped with some troubles at the old hospital. I balanced the phone against my shoulder while continuing to arrange bottles of vitamins. What's the situation, Father? We're renovating the church cemetery, moving some of the older graves to make room for drainage improvements. The work crew found something today that... He paused, and I heard him take a shaky breath. They found an unmarked section with children's graves, probably from the 1918 flu epidemic. Since then, we've been hearing singing in the church at night. Children's voices, but the words aren't in English or French. I can be there Sunday after my shift ends. Will that work? God bless you, son. Tony was right. You do this work like it matters. After I hung up, I found myself thinking about the 7 babies at Opelousas General and how they'd found peace once someone acknowledged their fear and helped them understand they weren't alone anymore. The work had been harder than I'd expected, sitting with that level of innocent suffering. But when the crying stopped and the hospital construction resumed without incident, I'd known this was exactly what I was meant to do. Mrs. Boudreau appeared at the end of the aisle, making her final rounds before the day shift arrived. She'd promoted me to night supervisor 6 weeks ago, which gave me the flexibility to handle other cases while maintaining steady income for my family. Another consultation? She asked, having overheard my side of the phone conversation. St. Landry's cemetery work disturbed some children's graves. She nodded like this was perfectly normal workplace conversation. Your grand-mère would be proud, you know. She helped people find peace their whole life, just like you're doing now. The truth was, I'd learned more about grand-mère's reputation in the past 2 months than I'd known while she was alive. People throughout Evangeline Parish remembered her kindness, her ability to ease suffering that went beyond physical ailments. Apparently, she'd prepared me for this work in ways I hadn't recognized at the time. All those stories about respecting the dead, all those lessons about listening to what wasn't being said, all those protective charms she'd made and insisted I carry. The bone charm this euphony had given me no longer activated with every supernatural encounter. But it still warned whenever I was near souls who needed help transitioning to whatever came next. Alcide had explained that the gift wasn't about seeing ghosts or communicating with spirits. It was about recognizing when the boundary between life and death had become confused and knowing how to restore proper order. My phone buzzed with a text message from Mama. Daddy's doctor says the treatments are working. Thank you for the extra money from your promotion. That made everything worthwhile. Being able to help my family while also serving people who had no one else to turn to. College in Baton Rouge seemed like someone else's dream now. Something that belonged to a version of myself who didn't understand that meaningful work could take many different forms. Jerome appeared from the automotive section, carrying a clipboard and grinning. Ready to train the new guy tonight? Kid named Marcus starts on Monday. As long as he's willing to learn that some jobs come with more than just a handbook. I already told him about the special protocols. He thinks we're joking. I smiled, remembering my own first night and how impossible everything had seemed. He'll figure it out. They always do. The automatic doors opened to let in the morning light, and the day shift workers began filing in, talking about weekend plans and traffic on Highway 190. Just another normal morning at a store that used to be anything but normal. Some debts once paid, stay settled.
Cousin, where say we